Hey, peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. Another Morning Wood installment. Serious notes, man. Wishing the best and full recoveries for Red Sox DH and first baseman, I guess, David Ortiz, who was shot in the back down in the Dominican Republic. I think last night. Went through a 6-hour surgery and man had part of his intestines removed, his gallbladder. Just shot in a bar or something. It looks like. But wishing pulling for him in a speedy recovery, and as well as on the boxing side, Zab Judah sustained some injuries, a brain injury over the weekend, and supposed to be doing better at this point. I think still being held for observation and whatnot, but it looks like things are moving in a positive direction. There was also some different reports on Bushwick Bill, whether or not he had passed away. I did see where spin.com had put out a rest in peace update, so maybe he has passed away at this particular point. But it seems like initially some people jumped the gun on saying that he was but it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it's just not much that can be done with that. Hey man, where do I start? I wanted to talk about Billions, Showtime's Billions. I think I did a pretty phenomenal job in the. I was getting some tires for my truck yesterday and had some time to kill, so I just went and did like a little, prediction video, just impromptu, to speak on the finale of Billions, and nailed a couple of things. So I don't know what more I can really add to it. Phenomenal season. Season 4, I believe. I told you that Axe was going to blow up his relationship with Rebecca Cantu. And the interesting thing will be, and he did, because she made a deal with his arch nemesis, Taylor, and thought she, found an alternative solution to a problem, and it ran afoul of what Axe was about, who was getting ready to lay out $2 billion to help her out of the situation that she was in. But this was the second time that Axe used the tactic of getting his target away from the world, if you will, while he carried out his maneuverings to screw said person, that he sent away or removed from the world. So it's not really a bait and switch, but some misdirection, which this episode was full of misdirection. He came and did some things and blew that relationship up. I told you that Chuck Rhodes had enough of having Axe, being under the thumb of Axe. Axe had grown increasingly disrespectful, towards Chuck in giving him. It went from favors and leverage and assistance and a second set of eyes. It mutated into flat out disrespect, and you work for me, and I knew that wasn't gonna sit well long. So those guys had a confrontational discussion, and Chuck has lost everything at this particular point. That's the one thing I thought Wendy and Axe were going to do before the episode was over, but that did not happen. But she did stay the night at his house. And I just think what Wendy seems to need right now, the type of attention to herself, from others, after serving all of these people at Axe Capital, and being a mother, issues with the husband who can't have regular, who can't seem to have regular sex. Seems like that was what Wendy was on this year. Was she was looking for someone that was really appreciative of her, at a really deep level. And Axe, when giving this laying this $25 million out to get her license, to make sure that her license wasn't suspended, her medical license, and then with the speech that he gave her about why he has so much loyalty towards her, and why, even though she's not a financial professional, she's an integral part of Axe Capital with what she does as far as being the therapeutic specialist, or whatever her role is there. But she keeps everybody, on their game. So yeah. Chuck flips. Chuck just beat down Jock and Connerty. I mean, just whipped them from pillar to post. It was a dope episode, man. I mean, I still don't kind of understand what Axe did to get Taylor caught up in this situation where they lost all of their capital, or 75, 85% of it, and were vulnerable enough to have to cop a plea, basically, and come over and go back to working at Axe Cap. I didn't kind of understand all of that, but like I said, you don't always need to understand all of the detail to follow the storyline. But phenomenal season from Billions. Like I said, the first episode got off on a little shaky for me, but they righted the ship immediately. And the next the next 11 episodes were just very solid. It's just a well-handled show. And like I said, this finale, whereas a lot of shows seem to struggle, with finales, Billions is it's a dope show, man. I mean, it's phenomenal. Next year, to close this one out, like I said, Taylor goes back to Axe Capital. Chuck she's basically going to be a CI for Chuck, and to find a way to finally bring down Axe. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out next year. It does seem like Taylor is not interested in solely being a rat, and giving up stuff, but doing it in a skillful way to free themselves, to walk away from the situation, unscathed, but for Axe to take some kind of fall, and for to get out of the sights of Chuck Rhodes. Anything else on Billions? That's kind of it. Episode 9 of The Chi, also on Showtime. Showtime is having a bit of they've had a strong Sunday night for the last 8-10 weeks, 12 weeks with Billions. But now this City on the Hill comes in with Aldous Hodge, starring Aldous Hodge and Kevin Bacon. I did watch the first episode of that one, and interesting show. I'm a rock with that one for a couple more episodes. See where it goes. But episode 9 of season 2 of The Chi. Let's put this out there, man. We all know that Jason Mitchell is out. Do keep in mind that everything for this season is before that. So they already shot all of this stuff. For anybody that's got it a little confused, they already shot all the episodes for this season. So there's not going to be any resolution in what happens with Brandon moving forward, in next week's finale. Like, they're gonna have to put something together over the off season, off season, for lack of better words. However they're going to handle that. My opinion is probably going to be something a little messy. But I got four major points here. Emmett, I tell you, man, sometimes Emmett's character is like anywhere from 17 to 21 or 20. Excuse me, 22 at times. To sit here and think that this kid is going to be, a manager of Sonny's, even though he's a pretty talented. He's quick on his feet. He's resourceful and has a good business mind in general, but it just would seem quite a bit for someone to bestow this type of responsibility on someone 17 or 18 years old. But he gets a new role at Sonny's. Sonny's is back in the building. Sonny himself. This episode, he does something special for his relationship with Keisha, who he seems to like more beyond just boyfriend, girlfriend. He likes her as a friend. And so he's reevaluating, kind of how he handled that situation in the past. And he goes and does something to have this special dinner prepared by Brandon, his partner in crime, the last 6-7 episodes. And then also he sets in motion something, to take care of Keisha's boyfriend, the older guy, the track coach. I want to say his name was Keith or something. But like I've been saying, the theme throughout the show, man, is that these guys take a step or two forward, and in the next scene or whatever, sometimes at the end of a scene they take 2 and 3 steps backwards. And here it is, as Emmett is getting going professionally, and has a situation that gets him off of the truck, which was a blossoming partnership with Brandon. He returns back to Sonny in this new role, and of course he gets his first check. He sees what the bump is in his pay, and then he also sees it's not what it could be because of his recklessness with having these 3 baby mamas. And of course the world comes to a screeching halt, and Tiff comes in to the store or to Sonny's and reveals that she's expecting. I saw some stuff online about get the DNA test, paternity test, blah blah blah. I guess that's kind of how we watch TV and get attached to these characters and blah blah whatever. But and maybe they do go that route, that she was sleeping with someone else. But it seems like Tiff was just working and trying to be a mom, and we do know that they hooked up this year, did their thing, and it's not beyond the pale that it's his. And it's a chance maybe for them to, maybe it's a decision that he has to make, that maybe I need to try to make this work with Tiffany. Now that I'm in a different place, with the new gig, maybe go about this differently and see if, they said they had no problems in the bedroom. They just couldn't get along with one another. But, and you shouldn't base the relationship on money, him not wanting to pay more child support. But if there is any way to make it work and something to be better for the, a better situation for the kids, maybe that's something that they explore next year. Brandon, he meets up with Detective Alice Tucson. She goes and gets some tacos from the truck. He checks out in terms of, what Cruz had told
Deep left.
Tucson. What is going on? Sorry. Yeah. So Cruz had already said that Brandon wasn't in the game and was an upstanding dude, and please leave his family alone. They've already suffered enough. And he checks out, from the interaction that Tucson has with him. And then Brandon has one of his best moments, his most I don't know if lucid is the word, but he has one of his highlights in terms of, you know, being a young man. And anyway, he mentors Kevin and tells Kevin, you know, you got to do what's best for you, bro. And these kids in the neighborhood, take advantage of being, if you are a special young man, a special young kid, while you had the opportunity to do some different things in life and get out into the world on some different footing, take full advantage of that, young bro, because it's not always going to be a time where somebody really is sewing into you and really, you know, pulling for you and putting you on to things that could better yourself. That's a rarity as a once you get out into the world. And it looks like Kevin might go to that. I don't know if it's North Side or North Academy. It's something that teacher Garza, Mr. Garza, Gasca, I think is his name. But no Tiffany Boone this week. Who knows? I would expect she's back next week. But the second bad news bear, Ronnie. Hey man, Ty Davis made it back this week. Always good to see Ty Davis. The interesting thing here is that I gotta take a sip before I get into this. Ty Davis comes and gets him out of jail, picks him up from getting out of jail after Cruz took him in for the DUI last week. Ty Davis is there for him. They hug, you know, share a moment. He goes through what's going on with them. And then he tells her that, you know, I was dating Jada. Now, are we really supposed to think that Jada and Tracy are supposed to fight over Ronnie and his rebuilt vehicle? I'm not trying to put this brother down, but I've mentioned, man, that this is where I struggle with this show on what they're trying to do with Ronnie. I get it. The man has had a troubling life, but he also killed a 16-year-old boy. And it just seems like they haven't figured out what they're going to do with that, in my opinion. Even this with Cruz taking him away at the end of the last episode. And, you know, 24 hours later, he's back on the streets. But he lets him know that he'll be watching and he'll do whatever to send him back to prison. But, yeah, Ronnie, again, man, I like he's been, say I'm hating or being too critical or whatever, man, but this is a very difficult ask to expect people to tune in to watch this guy week to week who has nothing really going on. I guess he was getting some time or some hours down at the community center or something. But again, he's just a waste of a character in many regards. I forget the actor. I know he has 4 names, but the actor's name who plays Ronnie. But again, between Ronnie and Kevin, man, it gets old to sit here and watch characters who really can't help themselves and say what's going on. I know Kevin is struggling from a lot of different angles, but, you know, accept his help, man, and accept that somebody sees something in you and is encouraging you to do more with yourself. But he just can't really see. He did open up, I guess, a little bit to Brandon during their man-to-man talk. But Ronnie, you know, he didn't go into the AA meeting. He just lost an important relationship that was starting to blossom with Jada in a moment of weakness. When he had drank this bottle last week and messed that relationship up. She wasn't in the show this week to see what was going on there. But yeah, between these two, like I said, man, waiting on something to root about in this show. I just wonder how people, when do people run out of patience with it? But like I said, 2 or 3 good episodes in a row for the show. I do have to admit that. Moving on to Cruz and Tucson, they continue the investigation. They meet a new player. Gaines is like the realtor who was behind the scenes in some of this stuff. And they can draw a clear connection to Omar Perry or Mr. Perry, Duda. And they go and question Gaines at the funeral. I believe that was for the white female that was one of the realtors that passed away. Just like that. That's another kind of open-ended thing. Here's a body, a homicide, and really they haven't made much headway in figuring out what happened to that. And I kind of, I don't know. I kind of fell off of that myself, like what was going on. Why did that lady get killed? Maybe I got to go back and watch the episode when they found her body. But and then Tucson is kind of pushed away or given something. She's given some pause because her son gets hurt. Her son, who was in is in juvenile detention or something, a juvenile facility, he was attacked. And they come in, she comes to work, and Cruz and the sergeant let her know that her son's been attacked. And of course, she probably is already aware of what's behind that, being at that, a couple scenes earlier, she went to go visit Omar Perry, Mr. Perry, and questioned him and made some allegations, that he was behind 63rd Street mob. And so now with her son being hurt, I'm sure that's going to turn things up significantly in her pursuit, because it doesn't seem like she's going to back down. That just doesn't seem like she's built like that. Cruz came out at the beginning of this episode and admitted to Brandon that he set a lot of this stuff in motion because he told Ronnie that Coogie, Brandon's younger brother, was found standing over him. And that's kind of what set everything in motion of why Ronnie went and chased down Coogie. They had their altercation, and it resulted in the death of Coogie. Again, and I'm about to get out of here, but 2 things, like I said, that this show has continued to struggle with detail. And maybe it's not even important. I'm watching other comment sections and chats and everything, and nobody cares. But spend very little time on what the hell Reg's crew does. And maybe, with the I've said that it's spread out all over the place as is. I guess there's really no time to focus on actually what they do to make money. I mean, it's just a blanket statement that they sell drugs. And then, so they've spent very little time kind of fleshing out what Reg is overseeing exactly, but they're selling drugs, which is a lot different from last year because I believe they were selling guns. But again, they just don't tend to dig into those types of details. The other detail is, Brandon has his second truck, and we've never met that crew. We don't see what they're selling, where they're working. Are they selling tacos too? Like I said, it's just there. And it would have been nice to at least for them to have shown Brandon getting that up and running, But like I said, I guess nobody cares. The one thing this week I do have an issue with is, and I thought it was kind of handled a little poorly, was Brandon brings over Reg to have a role, play a part in teaching the track coach, Keisha's ex-boyfriend, a lesson. And again, that was just kind of simple. Reg is put out there as a thoughtful dude at times, and they bring him in again. This simple play: we'll feed you some free chicken, and we'll give you free chicken in here. Take care of my issue for me. But for them to run down on the dude the way that I'm thinking he's gonna it's gonna be some kind of scam that he pulls off, or something more than just they run down on him at a stoplight and beat him down in public. That didn't seem like they really risk doing something like that so publicly. To go and to me that just wasn't really believable in my opinion. Catch him coming out of a club, catch him coming out of Sonny's, catch him after school, up at the track or something before he gets into his car. It was a dozen other ways that I thought that could have happened versus the way that they played it out. But that's just me. Then they steal his car, and I believe dude is in the streets somehow. I don't think they haven't really shown that connection yet, but based on the type of car that he has and the job that he has as a track coach, something is going on there. So anyway, man, that's kind of the wrap up for this. This is a longer Morning Wood pause, but it's Tyson Fury fight week going into Father's Day weekend. Him and Tom Schwartz, I believe. Do check out the interview to that. It's a kid from Toledo, Ohio, who's fighting on that card against Andy Vinces. It's going to be a very interesting bout on there, on the presentation or the telecast. It's going to be across like ESPN Plus and ESPN2, I believe. But check that out. But let me get ready to get on out of here, man. Have a great week. It's a Monday, man. We gotta rock with them because it's just a day like any other day. You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great.